ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, Chairperson.
Honorable Bradel.
Yes, Chairperson.
If we may just request, the first part of the meeting is going to be a meeting of the Standing Committee and the Auditor General and the Audit Committee, which will be a closed meeting of the committee. And then the department, we will call the department maybe anytime from 2:30, depending when we finish, or according to the program, is 2:45.
Fine with me. Thank you, Chair. I will opt out. I will leave the meeting.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Standing Committee or Public Account of the Western Cape Provincial Government for purposes of looking into the annual report of the Department of Local Government in the Western Cape. The meeting is going to be formed in two parts. The first part, it will be a briefing of the committee together with the Auditor General and the Audit Committee. And the second part of the meeting is going to be an open meeting, open to the public. Then it will be together with the department and its officials. Now, before we may start, honorable members, can I get an indication of the honorable members that are present?
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Derek America. I'm a member of the committee.
Thank you, honorable member.
Good afternoon, Deirdre Bartman, member of the committee.
Thank you, honorable.
Good afternoon, Matlodi Maseko, member of the committee.
Thank you very much, honorable. In the absence of further announcement. Thank you very much, Honorable Nkondlo. Mr. David, are there any indications of apologies?
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Good afternoon, committee members and stakeholders. Chair, I did not receive any apologies from POC members, Chair, but I do not see Member Kleho in the meeting.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Now, honorable members, I want us then to proceed with the first part of the meeting, which is an in-committee meeting, which is only allowed for members of the provincial legislature and the Auditor General and the Audit Committee. I take it that the Auditor General is already in, as well as the Audit Committee. I'm going to hand over now to the Auditor General.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon to the honorable members. My name is Unat. I'm the Senior Manager on the Audit of Local Government.
Okay, just before you may start, Unati, Mr. David, has the meeting been closed? Then, honorable members and ladies and gentlemen, our second part of the meeting of Standing Committee on Public Accounts in the Provincial Parliament of the Western Cape. And the purpose of the meeting, as I've indicated before, as it is the second part, is where we are going to look at the annual report of the Department of Local Government in the province of the Western Cape. And then with us, we are also having the Auditor General as well as the Audit Committee of that department. The meeting is an open meeting, which means that it is open to members of the public. After the honorable members have exhausted their questions and answers, so we will open the meeting to the public, for those who are in attendance, those that want to ask questions, and will also allow them an opportunity to do so. This meeting was advertised in 2 newspapers in 3 languages. For English, it was advertised in the Argus. For Afrikaans, it was advertised in the Burger, and for isiXhosa, it was advertised in Vukani newspaper. So now, what I will do then, I will welcome the minister as well as the department for attending the meeting. We appreciate their attendance. Now, I want to check if are there any opening remarks that the minister would like to make.
Honourable Chairperson, thank you very much. Yeah, I think we had a good year, although a very difficult year with COVID, etc. But I think I've done my introductory remarks this morning. Let's get into it, and we'll field the questions that the Standing Committee will pose to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. HOD, are there any remarks that you would like to make?
Chairperson, good afternoon and good afternoon to the members, to everybody on the platform. I'm comfortable with the direction, the guidance of the Minister, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, HOD. Now, honorable members, without wasting time, I'm going to request those members who would like to ask questions in the report of the local government in the Western Cape annual report. Now, and the meeting will be dealing with section C as well as section E of the report, and section C start from page 77 until page 86, and section E start from page 131 until 203. Can I get an indication of the members who would like to ask questions? I see Honorable Maseko.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I see on page 81, on the internal audit and audit committees, the meetings that have been attended by the audit committee members. Mr. Mahomet attended 1 and Ms. Crystal attended 2. So I just want to find out what are the reasons for that, because now it seems like it's only 3 members that are active. Really the attendance is just 1 and 2. Can we get the clarity of is there a reason why it's just the minimum attendance to the committee? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Maseko. Honorable Ngondro.
Thank you, Chairperson. Firstly, Chair, I just wanted to understand from the department, considering that when one looks at one of its functions to allocate or conduit for grants to some of the municipalities, if it is their responsibility to monitor that those grants are fully spent? And where they are not, what would be their response for such underspending if one goes through a number of these grants, that some of them up to 100% were not fully spent, and if such is not a risk in as far as service delivery is concerned? Secondly, Chair, I just wanted to understand.
Just before you move to the next question, Honorable Ngondo, which page are you basing your question on?
Okay, Chair, I'm on the governance because there are risks, so that is why I'm raising this question.
Oh,
as
okay.
a risk.
So you're raising it. I thought maybe because it seemed to have some financial connotation, maybe it might be a section E question, but it's fine. No, that's fine if it's just based on emerging risks. No problem.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairperson. The second one, Chair, I'm interested from the department if on page 82, the two reports on the corporate governance baseline and that was water risk governance, I see that those two assignments have been completed and are already, I think, on their implementation. And I wanted to understand whether can those reports or those copies of what came out of that be shared with the committee, and maybe just to give a sense of what triggered those. That's my second one. Thirdly, Chair, on the health and safety, does the department itself have a unit that exists on the issues that they've worked on, because there is an indication there that they've done some health and safety assessments and they're implementing particular things. So who is running that? Is it part of the corporate services? Who is doing it? Reporting to whom? What budget? Is it a standalone unit, or where does it fall as a health and safety, given the current environment we all operate in as far as COVID is concerned? And then on the BBBE1, I'm trying to understand, the department there indicates that based on the interim strategy, that as the department, they are not implementing, I think, parts of the PPFR. So I'm wanting to understand, as per the requirement of the BBBE Act, if there are any of the provisions that a department or state entity will then deviate from, such an authorization must be sought from the Minister of Trade and Industry. So as they respond there to say no on a matter that's related to a BBBE compliance, is the department having such an authorization, and can such be provided to the committee? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Ngonlo. Honorable Bocha.
Thank you, Chairperson, and greetings to the meeting. My question is just an expansion of the last speaker, Honorable Nkondlo, on page 86 of the annual report regarding the BBBE compliance performance information. When it comes to the developing and implementing of preferential procurement policy, the department responded there with a big no. So, however, the reasons given by the department after that are very vague, and the department must also say it with clarity why a preferential procurement policy has not been developed and implemented. If there are any challenges in this regard, what are these challenges? Chair, thank you very much.
Are you finished, Honorable Bocha?
I'm done, Chairperson. I'm not sure if you want me to proceed to part E, or is it just part B for now?
No. We are now only dealing with part C now.
Sure, noted.
We'll move to part E.
Noted.
Honorable America.
No, Chair, thank you. My question related to part E, so I'm lowering my hand. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Honorable America. Minister, I don't know who's going to answer questions. Department, can we get the responses from the department?
Yeah, thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Between myself and the CFO, Bhavna, and I'm not sure whether the Audit Committee want to respond to some of the questions. Just in terms of the grants and the spending of the grants, obviously the various chief directors and directors are responsible for monitoring the grant. Given the fact that the department actually goes through a due diligence process for a large part of the grants, in other words, it does actually proper assessments in terms of the support required. We do have a constitutional mandate to provide support and build the capacity of municipalities. And based on our engagement during the course of the year, whether that's the MTech engagements, the LG MTech engagements, the Simon at time, we then work with municipalities to identify where some of the areas that support is required. And that follows a due diligence process in terms of business plans being submitted, further engagements with the municipality. There's a committee established within the department that does a due diligence based on certain criteria. And obviously, based on that, there's a submission to me as an accounting officer. And given the due diligence process, I then determine whether I sign off and approve those transfers to certain municipalities based on the support required and the needs. And obviously, Chairperson, when that process is concluded, that money then flows in what we call the adjustment budget process. And it will flow normally in the annual financial year. It will flow now to the municipalities in the provincial adjustment budget. And municipalities have more or less than about 6 months to spend that money. So from November, December until June. And although they go through the process of procurement and so on to get service providers or provide some support, in some instances they're not adequate time to spend that money in 6 months. And that's why there's a rollover request, and we then consider the rollover request. Part of the move is actually to say with the main budget. We actually give an indication already in the main budget to municipalities what kind of support we will provide to them, so that they can actually have a longer period to spend the money. We've gotten it right in certain areas where we transfer the money ahead of time. So if we transfer it now, it actually becomes applicable to their financial year. Say, if we talk about next year, it becomes available to them the 1st of July 2022. And then they obviously can spend the money. So we're trying to synchronize the processes between ourselves, the municipal year of ourselves, and the provincial municipal year. And when we, in IGR meetings and engagement, we have numerous requests from municipalities to see to what extent we can actually align our financial years to ensure that the budgets are actually spent. We were also considering whether we can make the allocation over the MTEF instead of a single year, so that it's not necessary for municipalities to come back and to apply for a rollover. But that has been subsequently stopped to say it can't actually go over a medium-term expenditure framework. It should go over annual basis, and there should be. But we are trying to innovate around this so that we can minimize the underspending and the need for application for rollover in municipalities. I'm not sure whether the audit committee honourable chairperson is going to answer about just the audit members. I'm not sure if the chairperson of the audit committee, but in the meanwhile, I'm going to ask Bhavna maybe just reflect on the balance of the questions, the health and safety and the triple BEE, and then we can also deal with the other questions. Thank you, honourable chairperson. Bhavna, please.
Thank you, HOD. Through you, Chair. The unit that's responsible for the occupational health and safety is within the Finance Directorate, and it's within our support services unit or sub-directorate. We do a lot of the occupational health and safety related to the engagements within the department as well as within the offices of the department. The compliance related to the COVID regulations is also driven by that unit together with the COVID Compliance Committee. So that is a joint responsibility with the department's HOD, the compliance officer, and the compliance committee together with the Occupational Health and Safety unit. There isn't a dedicated budget, as it were, for the unit. The budget falls within the ambit of the Finance Directorate, and that falls into Program 1. With regard to the BBBE, the legislation related to the BBBE requires that each department be compliant and have BEE certification. And that's the part of the BBBE Act that the provincial government departments, or most provincial government departments in the country, are not compliant with. And that's because it costs about 100 to 120,000 Rand to get BEE compliant. But we're not actually service providers to anybody, in the sense that we get services from suppliers to the department, and we don't offer services to anyone that somebody is paying for that they need to allocate BEE points to us in order to adjudicate. So that's the part of the non-compliance. The Provincial Treasury will be able to provide whatever the authority is in terms of the deviation or the non-compliance related to it. And the reason it's not been implemented is that the provincial stance from the Provincial Treasury is that the departments will not be compliant related to the BEE certification of the department. I must, however, just confirm that regarding the BBBE and the points allocated to suppliers and doing business with suppliers, that is fully intact and is not negotiable. So that is completely adhered to in terms of the Act, and there's no discretion that is exercised in terms of overlooking any of the requirements related to BBBE on the side of procurement or awarding any work. Thanks.
Audit Committee.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. The question relating to the dates of the Audit Committee members. The one member, Yasin Ismail, he resigned during the financial year due to work commitments in Africa, and then another member was appointed, Ms. Crystal Abdul. That's why there's a bit of an overlap on the meetings, but they did attend all the required sessions then. That's why there's a bit of an overlap over the dates. Trust that answers the question.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Any follow-ups, or I see Honorable Maseko would like to ask a question.
Sorry, Chair, the Chairperson was too quick for me. Can he just repeat the response?
Certainly, Chairperson, if I may, Honourable Maseko, member Yasin Ismail resigned from the Audit Committee during the financial year. That's where he only attended a number and then he resigned. And then Ms. Abdul was appointed in the vacancy, and that's why she also only attended up till March. There was only one meeting that she could attend. I think it was 2 meetings. And then she subsequently, she's attended all the meetings since she's been appointed. It's just an overlap over the financial year end.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Maseko?
Yeah, thanks. Just a follow-up. So, Chairperson, you mean that with the 3 board members, you managed to do all the work, and then with the addition of Ms. Abdul later, and everything operated nicely? So, because 7 meetings, that means you had about 4 meetings, there are only 3 of you with all the responsibilities of the board.
Yes, Chairperson, if I may answer Honourable Maseko, that's 100% correct. We were only 3, but we still do the same work, answer the same questions, and answer all the difficult questions. So that is 100% correct. The number of committee members do not necessarily imply that there's a enhanced governance or enhanced oversight. So with the 3, we did do the work as required. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thanks, Chairperson. Honorable Nkondlo.
Chair, as a follow-up on the response on BBBE, the colleague from the department, actually the explanation says what is written here and what she's saying are 2 different responses to that particular question, because she concludes that actually the department does implement the preferential procurement policy. She goes into town and explain the specific which relates to the no answer that they've provided. So in my reading, then it means the answer that is provided there is not appropriate for the question, or it's a misrepresentation. So surely, because these books are meant for the public and are meant to simplify things so that people can better understand, because not everybody has got the opportunity to sit in a standing committee, get more detail from somebody who is a subject matter specialist. So I'm still not understanding, because if the department says in a question or a criteria that says developing and implementing a preferential procurement policy says no, but then when you answer, they say no, we're referring to a certificate. I would have expected that they would have then qualified that in the report that our no refers to the certificate, but all the other elements of the implementation of the preferential procurement policy as a department we are doing, because at this point it doesn't seem the same from what she's explaining and what is being written here. And I think that is something, in my view, that needs to be corrected so that we don't rely every time on these kind of meetings for us to get better explanation from what is written and what is actually reported in the report. And again, Chair, I'm sure I will make a follow-up with the individual questions, because I think the HOD, what he did was to try and explain to me the process of how they try and do the allocations, what are the challenges. But once again, this matter is not placed there, and I'm not sure, and I've asked earlier on, how do we scope or rate what is then finally regarded as a risk? And for me, I would think with everything that he has said, which some, as he has even indicated, has got to do with how the allocations are done, which even at this point, they've not managed to convince, I think, the financial system on the kind of flexibility that they need to try and manage this, that will come back into their reports and demonstrate underspending. And I'm raising this because this has been an issue across municipalities, I think from the Financial Commission and many, about the issue of underspending on grants. But for me, once again, it becomes a challenge why this issue is not viewed as an issue that is a risk. And if the risk is indeed in how the matter is scoped or how it is defined, how the multi-year allocations are put in place, so that it is understood. I get it, that's the purpose. It's not just to tick the box and comply. Then lastly, Chair, I would like for the department to clarify for me, once again, on the issue of risks. One, there is an issue here on in page 62. I think page 62, they speak about the IDP, the JDA, the Joint District something. And I understand that as a department, also if you look at their legislative mandate, they have a responsibility to interact with other spheres of government, especially national with local government. There's a district development model by national government. What is the harmonization and policy coherence risk when the department is implementing a joint district model? Then you've got a district development model that is being done. isn't that also having any impact on service delivery and on their ability to ensure that there is quicker and smooth service delivery between the three spheres of department that must ensure that the end user in a municipality does not get bogged down to all of these. And one sees these issues as being placed here, but they are not necessarily placed as a risk. And I'm just asking myself, I'm not a risk specialist of the department, but when I read, I see these as issues that are a risk. And lastly, Chair, without being long, is the issue of Kanaland. The issue of Kanaland is being raised there as being seen acutely. Don't know what that means. Acutely, as one of the challenges. It's a political issue. It has lent to the department withholding money with the provincial treasury to Kanaland. And once again, this matter is by the way, in their risk, is not mooted as a serious risk in that particular municipality and also in the service delivery. Perhaps it is not. I'm not understanding because I do not understand the veracity of withholding money that would have enabled the municipality because the department assumes that such because of political instability and administrative instability there, such money is not going to yield the value. So I'm troubled with these questions, especially from a risk perspective, Chair, before you even get to the finances, but from a risk perspective, why they are not placed as a risk? Is it because they are not major risk, or maybe if one considers, the kind of colors that one would have seen, either green, yellow, or amber, maybe it's a low risk from the department's point of view, and therefore we should not make a big hoo-ha about them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ngondlo. Department.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you for the questions. So I'm going to also ask Nazuka just to reflect on the JDMA and the DDM that the Honorable Member has written in Kondlo. So I hear what the member is saying around the grants. At this stage, Honorable Chairperson, I have not identified as a risk or as a lower risk. It requires a review, obviously together with the Provincial Treasury, as to what is the best way we can manage this. But it also requires further interaction with municipalities to understand what are some of the fundamental and contributing factors why the funding can't be spent timelessly, so that we can come up with an alternative approach around this. We thought at some time when we had multi-year allocations over the MTEF that we could manage this, but obviously there was a different perspective on this. So from where I'm sitting, it has not been identified as a risk, even a low risk, but it definitely requires a review, and I will agree with the Honourable Member. In terms of the JDMA and the DDM, it's not a risk. In actual fact, we have made significant progress in this province around the JDMA. The Provincial Executive Cabinet has decided that this province will follow a JDMA approach in the province and not necessarily the DDM. And I'm going to ask Nazuka to explain just the difference and what we are doing and how we are collaborating with the national government and the national departments around this. It is definitely not a risk. In actual fact, tomorrow, all the national departments and stakeholders are meeting with us on the platform of the JDMA to understand our progress and the advancement that we made in terms of some of the catalytic projects in this regard and so on. And we will share some of the best practices as to how we have developed it. We haven't, in terms of the JDMA, instituted any additional IGR structures. The DDM requires that, and we have used the existing structures in municipalities where those are the DCF and the DCF techs to give expression to what we call the joint district, joint district and metro approach within the province. Kanaland municipality, between the Department of Local Government and the Provincial Treasury, there is an allocation that the National Treasury gives us for interventions in municipalities, particularly where there are interventions in municipalities. So in our case, for the period under review, it was Kanaland. and we had in excess of about 4 million for the interventions in Kannaland. But there was a financial recovery plan in Kannaland, and at some time Kannaland then decided that they would deviate from that financial recovery plan. It has been accepted by them, by council, for implementation. There was a sort of implementation manager there to help and assist and drive the plan. But given some of the developments in Kannaland, they've decided to deviate from the plan. That's in terms of procurement, in terms of the organizational structure, and further financial commitments and undertakings. And given the instability at that time, there was further consultation with it, and between ourselves and the Provincial Treasury, there was a decision to withhold that funding from Kannaland. Not that it was specifically earmarked for Kannaland, we also attempted to get some of that money to support other municipalities. But then just prior to the end of the financial year, there was a decision by the Provincial Treasury that it's in the best interest not to transfer the money to Kannaland. We have now applied for the rollover of that money, and the Provincial Treasury has now given us a large part of that money back. And obviously, we will see to what extent we can assist Kannaland further. I think there's also a understanding that that money can also be used and applied for something different within the department. But we are working with Kannaland. I've already made contact with the acting municipal manager there, given the fact that we need to support and assist Kannaland. So it doesn't apply that as a Western Cape government or as a Department of Local Government, we have severed our relationship or stopped our support and our capacity building initiatives towards Kannaland. Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Nozuko, do you want to just reflect on the JDM and the DDM, please, if you don't mind?
Thanks, HOD, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members. Nozuko Zamklaka. In terms of the JDMA, so what we have done just at the onset, we have shared the methodology and our approach with the National Department of Cooperative Governance. We've given them extensive information on what the linkage is between the DDM and the JDMA, and the Director General of the Cooperative Governance Department has written back to us to indicate that they do accept the JDMA and that it ticks all the boxes in relation to the DDM. And so we are continuously reporting to National in respect to the JDMA. Just in summary, what we have done on our side, on the JDMA side, we have, in each of the 5 districts, we have JDMA teams comprising the 3 national departments, senior officials from the 3 spheres of government. And those officials meet between monthly and a quarterly basis. We started right in July when the Premier's Coordinating Forum endorsed the JDMA, and we've institutionalized that particular methodology. Through that process, the JDMA teams in each of the areas and the 5 districts have together working with the district coordinating forums and the district coordinating forum, technical forum, which is the forum of the municipal managers. They have developed delivery plans or implementation plans, which is the version of the one plan at a national level. And those particular one plans or JDMA implementation plans have been implemented in the various districts since they were adopted around between November 2019 up to February 2019, depending on the date of implementation. So the projects, they vary with infrastructural projects and some projects that are in relation to collaboration. Our national departments have come in quite strongly. And so we are, each departments, they are coming through. Our latest partner is Justice, which has also come through. Otherwise, between the 30 municipalities in the Western Cape and the 13 departments provincially, they are participating fully in the JDMA, with national departments also having come through. So we are reporting on the implementation of the JDMA, and we've also used the same methodology in other kind of projects in relation to drought. We've also, as our response into the 3 priorities in terms of the recovery plan, also utilized the same methodology based on the successes that we've had in the 5 districts. Thank you, Honourable Chair.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Zamaka. Any further questions or follow-up, honourable members, on section C of the report? If there are no further questions, honourable members, can we move then to section E of the report, which start from page 131. No, Honourable America did indicate in the beginning that he would like to ask question here. Let me start with him. Thereafter, Honourable Bartman, in that order.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think that HUD, with his elaborate explanation of the transfers to municipalities, have largely covered the question that I was going to ask. So let me ask the question which I asked the AG's office, and certainly, and allow me to congratulate the department on its 8th consecutive clean audit. I think it is a remarkable achievement. So the question that I asked the AG's office, and they gave me a response, I would like to ask the department as to what do they attribute the clean audit success to, and if there's any elements thereof that we can learn and make it applicable to other departments. Thank you, Chair.
Honourable Bartman.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, on page 134 of this particular chapter, it speaks there of capacity constraints under bullet point number 2. It specifically speaks about compensation of employees due to the delays and challenges with filling of the capacity funded from earmarked funding and resignation of officials within the department. Given that there's a capacity constraint, I just wanted to find out what would the total amount be in order to deal with that capacity constraint. I know that I think every department that comes before any committee would probably need more money, but I would like it to be quantified how much more would be able to assist with the capacity constraint. Then on page 135, it speaks there about the financial and operational sustainability model for municipalities, and Stellenbosch University assisted with putting together those alternative revenue streams, basket of services, and minimal level of services rendered to people. Is this similar to the research question that Member Nkondlo asked? If not, how far is this research in terms of ongoing process? Page 177. There, under note number 5, which is goods and services, one of the items is legal services, and legal services between the 2 years has almost halved. And I just wanted to understand, I know this department uses quite a bit of legal services due to the nature of the departments. I just want to understand, did you need less lawyers? Are you going to court less? Does this include legal advice to municipalities? Is there a reason that it's reduced so drastically? Not that I'm ever complaining that we're not paying money to lawyers. On the same page, 177, it speaks there under the note box regarding the operational expenditure. It speaks to the forensic investigators. And 2 million seems quite little for a department of this nature. And I just wanted to find out what was that for, and what would the quantifiable amount be more or less for having adequate finances in order to capacitate for forensic services? Then on page 182, under the note regarding prepayments, sorry, just not open up here, prepayments, it speaks there of a prepayment of a training amount of 500,000, which unfortunately, obviously now had to be postponed due to the national lockdown. But I just wanted to find out what was that money for? Whose training was that going to be for? Is the training still going to happen? Is it going to roll over? And then on page 200 and page 201, it obviously speaks to the different transfers and grants to municipalities. And Chair, one of my questions to the Auditor General previously at the end wasn't answered. And I'll just give the department also a little bit of a context, just so that they are also in the same WhatsApp group to that question. My original question was, how does the Auditor General audit transfer payments and the expenditure thereof? And the Auditor General has wonderfully explained, quite frankly, I think for the first time in probably almost 3 years, really, that we transfer the payment going out to municipalities by the department, but the expenditure of the transfer gets audited at a municipal level. And then the HOD spoke about the alignment of local government as well as the department. So now my question is, how do we then synchronize that receipt of information on the money which we have transferred to municipalities, as well as the auditing of those expenses? And that question I would like the Auditor General as well as the HOD to assist us with, because an example I gave is, if ideally what we would like to see is when a municipality X got R5, you would also ideally like to see the audit of the R5 in the municipality, so that one can know when the next budget cycle commences, despite them spending half of their money mid-year because of different cycles, whether or not one should be giving that municipality extra money, that extra R5, or perhaps we should just say, sorry, babe, you're on your own. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Bartman. Honorable Nkondlo.
No, thank you, Chair. I would really be interested in the question asked by Member Bartman, because I think indeed somehow that particular issue, you know, especially where the money gets to be paid and where it gets to be accounted for, and the audit, if indeed there is no streamlining there, it leaves, I think, also our own oversight responsibility a bit of hazy. So I'm very interested in listening and learning from that question. Chair, I just want to understand from the department, perhaps if one just starts in page 141, what would have triggered, I think, the dip in the allocation for the previous financial year and the one reporting on the program on development planning? Because one, I think if you go further down, one would see I think how, as an example, municipal infrastructure program 3.1 and 3.2 as an example, I think there's been less sort of budget to those municipalities. And when one does, what would then be an impact in those infrastructure that would have been there to trigger economic development in those municipalities, given the environment that we are in? So I think that's just my first question, to just understand the rationale of that budgeting there, Chair. The second one, Chair, is that in page 144, on corporate services in the MEC's office, just want to understand what would have been the additional spend from the 47 to almost 51.7 in this financial year. What would be then have been the extra demands from the MEC's office in terms of their corporate services responsibility? Further to that, Chair, when one just look at the budget itself, the budget information particularly, you would have seen, or one would have then observed, some spikes in particular in as far as the advertising budget is concerned and the communications. And please just help me to understand what's the difference between the two, because as I see, both of them has increased quite significantly. So I just want to understand what would have been that I see, I think in one of the notes where they try and explain some of these, I think masterclass and other things in terms of what the department is communicating, and how do we measure value for this allocations. So if we have had to spend so much money in this year, at what point can we be able to do some kind of a measurement of how that investment have yielded whatever was the intended outcome of that particular spend, including, I think there's something in page 177 called Zutari. I don't know what Zutari is, if maybe that could be explained. Another one maybe is to understand for me, what is this area firefighting, which I think is about 13 million, if I'm not mistaken. How long is this contract? What exactly and which areas is it supposed to be working? And for maybe just a bit of a background context, just for a lay person like me to understand what it is and why the department needed such a technology. And then, Chair, I think to my latter questions, Chair, I just want to check on page 162 if the supplier that at this point could not deliver the IT equipment as part of the goods and services and machinery is the same supplier that is being referred to, and why was the delay, and is it something that was agreed upon by the department? Was it not anticipated? Because I see that I think that money, I think, would have to be rolled over, if I'm not mistaken. So if I can just get a clarity on that one. And then also, what is this leave without pay also that has moved from 56 from the previous financial year to almost 462? What exactly is that, if one can just get more clarity? And last one on page 187. Can we get a more, because I would see, unless I've missed it in the annual report, the notes that explain the irregular expenditure, because I can see a smaller part of it that has been condoned, but also I see it has increased from the previous year quite significantly to the current year, but it is not explained what it is, although it says it's a supply chain issue. And there is a part of it that is with Treasury, and I think Provincial Treasury has already condoned part of it, which is a smaller component. But I'm interested to understand what's the basis of that, because under normal circumstances, one you would see in the annual report just information that gives more detail about what would have happened and all of that, if such can also be provided. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nkondlo. Honorable Makama Boja.
Thank you, Chairperson. My first question is on page 147, on the table under the sub-program 1.2, under corporate services, under households, the final appropriation and expenditure there is 34,000. So what I need to understand from the department, what exactly was the amount spent on? Can we get clarity on that? And the second question is on page 149, where it speaks about more than 16.6 million that was spent on as a form of a social contribution. Can the department explain what these social contributions entail? And then the third question is on page 150 under the economic classification of training and development, the adjusted appropriated funds amounting to 413,000 that were really shifted. I would like to know why were they shifted and where they were shifted to. And then the last two questions is on page 180 under point 6.2 under the debt written off. This is a clarity-seeking question. If there is a debt owed by the department by any individual, and then the person later passes on or dies, in general, it is the normal practice for the department to claim the amount from the deceased estate, or what? That's what I need to understand on that page. And then the last part of my question, Chairperson, is on page 183 under recoverable expenditure. There is a theft and damages of assets amounting to 19,000 rand. What was stolen and damaged, and what actions were taken by the department with regards to those incidents? Those are my questions, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Boja. Maybe also let me ask my question now. I was hoping that maybe one of the honorable members might ask it so that I don't ask it. But then it's because when Honorable Nkondlo was asking about a lot about Kanaland, I was thinking that that's why I was asking a page, because I know most of the issues on Kanaland were very much on the other sections that we don't deal with. But then because I know on page 161, that's where the matter was actually raised. It's raised. Now, I think the way it's also put there in 161, it is actually mentioned that it's because of the instability in the area. Now, I just wanted to check whether, because I'm always the last person to want us to interfere on issues of local government, but of course, if it's relating to the money that is from us, I believe that they must actually really be held accountable. But I see on those previous pages other sections, especially on performance, on the monies that are being given to Kanaland, they were able to spend some of the money, and even I think in some of the others it says it has been paid in full. Now, but I just said the problem is that we were giving them some of the monies, but then some of the monies we are actually withholding from them. What really informs the reason for us to withhold these monies from them? What was the real reason? Because on some they were given money and they spend it in full, but then when it comes to another money is withheld, and it's cited that it's due to the political instability. Is the instability in such a way that it affects the use of funds? Maybe it's either through fraud or they are mismanaging the money, or what was really the rationale really? I'm raising this because Kanaland is one of the smallest municipalities that we are actually having, and sometimes withholding money might actually create more problems for the municipalities than actually assisting the problem. I would like to get the department's comment on that. Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you for the questions. So what I'll do is I'm going to ask perhaps just Ida to respond to some of the questions in relation to just the legal service, and obviously some of the questions around the forensic unit I can also add. And then Colin, maybe about around the just around the fires and the money, which areas and so on, the aerial firefighting. And then Bhavna, I'm going to ask you please just to respond to some of the questions, the balance, and then we'll see what is left and respond to the others. I will also respond to Kanulat in particular, the question that the Honourable Chairperson has raised. Thank you very much. Ira?
Thank you, HOD. Good afternoon to the members, the honourable members, and also good afternoon to the chairperson. My name is Ira Barnard. I will be providing responses specifically relating to the forensic unit. There were two questions. So the first one is specifically why the amount came down from the previous financial year into the year that we are reporting about. So what is important is for me just to explain that one of the grants that we do have, which was discussed earlier also, is called the municipal or the local government support grant. So what we have done is, as one of the standing projects inside of the grant, we made provision for additional funding to be able to carry some of the work that the forensic unit must be doing. That includes both for the investigations, the investigators, as well as some of the legal work associated to it, to be funded not through that specific line item that was referred to in the annual financial statements itself, but we created a second source of funding through the local government support grant, which is one of the grants that we are responsible for. So that amount, if you count then the two amounts available together, it roughly works out to more or less the same as the previous financial year, just to indicate and to confirm that it's a second source of funding that we made available to be able to carry the expenditure. The second question that was asked is specifically around the 2 million. And I just want to make the distinction there. The just over 2 million rand was specifically in cases where we have designated investigators to undertake formal Section 106 investigations in terms of the Systems Act. In these cases, there were allegations made of fraud, corruption, and maladministration. There were a reasonable belief that they were merit in these allegations, and therefore Minister designated investigations to undertake a formal investigation in terms of the Systems Act. In the year under review, they were in 3 municipalities, of which the reports were also concluded, and the cost associated thereto for that year was 2 million. Also, just to explain to the members that it's difficult for us to make a determination about the specific amount that may be required. So on the one side, we have our internal investigators, and those are the ring-fenced funding that we've received for 3 years for Treasury to appoint our own investigators, which are in-house and on contract appointments at the moment. But when we designate investigators, it needs to come from a different source of funding, as these investigators are not working in the department. We designate them from outside of the department in terms of the provisions of the Systems Act. And we cannot determine beforehand the number of investigations that will actually result in a formal investigation in terms of the Section 106. And therefore, it's difficult for us to make a full determination. But for the year under review, it amounted to 2 million. Chair, I'll pause there.
Thanks, Ida. Colin, just on the finance.
Thank you, HOD. Good afternoon, honourable members and Minister. So the aerial firefighting is from the Disaster Management Centre. Our risk assessment that we do on the province, obviously, one of our biggest risks that we have is the risk of wildfires. So we have approximately 1,200 fires a year, which we have to deal with from a wildfire perspective. So what we have done is we've made use of the national contract or working on fire contract, whereby we contract aircraft for the period from December to about the end of April. We contract between ourselves, the Cape Winelands District and the City of Cape Town, approximately 30 aircraft, which consists of mostly helicopters, but then we also have fixed wing aircraft with bigger capacity to drop water. The program is throughout the entire province. So what we do is we do an assessment at the beginning of the year, and we look at what our most fire-prone areas possibly will be, and then we do an allocation of placing the aircraft in the different positions. What we do then is we have what we call our rapid attack program. We have found that delaying a response to a fire causes much more damage. So what we attempt to do is we attend to the fire as soon as it breaks out in a high-risk area. And in so doing, we prevent a lot more damage, loss of life, loss of property. What goes together with the aerial support is specialized firefighting teams. So we train firefighters to a very high level that we can actually lift them with helicopters and take them into mountains, etc., to protect specific sensitive areas. So it's a program that we've been running for approximately the last 11 years. We attempt to try and control a fire within the first hour of it breaking out, and thereby we do not have an ongoing disastrous incident. We've actually achieved a success rate of between 90 and 95% of being able to control the fire in the first hour. So as I said earlier, it is for the entire province. We work with the districts, we support the district municipality, and then also to a lesser extent, the city of Cape Town with this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Bhavna, can you proceed, please?
Thanks, HD, through you, Chair. So I'll start with the prepayments. The prepayments of the 500,000 was for mediation training for councillors, and that's subsequently being completed once hard lockdown was finished and the invoice was paid for as well. How do we synchronize the receipt of the money in the municipalities on the transfer payments compared to the expenditure of the department? I think that's going to be a little bit more difficult than to answer this as plainly and quickly, because the financial years are not aligned. So as a result, the closest we can come to an alignment is Q3 expenditure reports from the municipality being the final figures that we put into our annual financial statements, and that's the closest that we can come in terms of a verification and synchronizing at this stage, unless there's a call by National to have the financial years aligned, in which case it makes it a lot easier. Why did Program 3 decrease? That on the infrastructure side, and that's related specifically to the earmarked grant funding related to drought that was not continued support that came into the baseline for the department. With regard to the member's question around Program 1, and I think it was actually the incorrect line that was looked at in terms of the MEC. It's actually related to Program 1 within the department, and that's specifically related to the compliance related to the COVID regulations and the additional capacity that was required for COVID, as well as the awareness campaigns related to the support that was needing to be rendered to the department and the wider support to the municipalities. On comms and advertisements, on communications, the substantial increase of the 200,000 is related to the cell phones and the classification of it. When the cell phones are in contract, it is under leases, and when they're out of contract, it goes into communication. And as such, you'll see that there was a decrease in the lease amount and an increase in the communications. On advertisements, it's specifically related to the awareness campaigns that were rendered due to the COVID awareness. There was a question around Zutari and explain what they are. Zutari is a firm of contractors or consultants that have been appointed by the Infrastructure Directorate to assist with the 15-year integrated water response plan, and that was done through an open tender process. The rollover of IT equipment, the reason that the IT equipment had to be a request for the rollover happened is that the order was placed in the financial year, but due to the hard lockdown, the laptops were not able to enter the country because they were stuck at customs and they were not able to be cleared. The supplier was only able to deliver them in the new financial year, and as such, we paid for them when we receive them in the new financial year. We required the IT equipment in order to support the remote working of the staff as well. So it was crucial that we needed to place the order. I'll leave the leave without pay question for the HOD to field. With regard to the irregular expenditure on page 188, it relates specifically to items that are on the 285, it's related to non-compliance on SEM and the delegations, and that's in response to using DHL to manage the donations on the COVID side. The 34,000 is related to Korea IT, and that's also on a contract management side, and both those are related to contract management and the extension. So while the appointments were made in terms of the normal SEM processes, the contract date had expired and work had continued past the contract date. So that's the non-compliance. And regarding the non-compliance to a financial delegation, that's related to 150,000 Rand. And that's on a Beaufort West transfer or payment to the Beaufort West municipality in support of a two-song center and the paperwork not adequately being filled out and authorized properly. With regard to households, the amount in households is related to leave gratuity or leave payouts of people who have left, resigned, or any leave that was owed that needed to be paid out. Social contributions is medical aid and pensions of the staff and the pay over to the respective GPF and the medical aid funds. The 413 on training, it was moved out of training because with the staff working remotely, a lot of the in-house on-site training was not completed and it was moved into consultants. A lot of the training did happen, but it happened remotely. So the venue costs and a lot of the facilitator costs and stuff would have reduced. Related to deaths, and in the case of where somebody is deceased, we do attempt to recover the any debts that are owed to the department. We try to do it from the pension payout or before the pension is paid out to the deceased estate. But there are instances where that does not happen, and we do attempt to recover from the late estate. And only in the event that we're not able to get success or on the advice of legal services is that written off. But we haven't had any instances of that for many years now. With regard to the thefts on page 183, and that's the 19,000, that's actually our disallowance account, and that is still thefts that are under investigation. And as such, we haven't determined whether somebody is liable for the money to be recovered or whether it needs to be written off at this point. That's all from my side, Chair. It's just the leave without pay that I'll refer to the HOD for feedback. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Are there any further additions from the department?
Thank you, Chairperson. So if I can maybe just respond to a couple of the questions. Just in terms of the capacity that the honourable member has asked, what kind of capacity require and so on. And I think over and above what is in the annual report, I mean, we are in discussions with this. There is the Khoisan legislation that was enacted, and obviously to implement that in the province. If you look at I can say program 4, there's only 1,000 Rand, so we are looking at that. There's I think capacity just in terms of infrastructure as well as the forensic capability within the department. But obviously we now in this province have 16 hung councils, and the kind of oversight and sort of the instability that creates from a governance perspective, particularly so a local governance perspective, most probably require additional capacity in that regard. So just the research work that we've done. So we do on an annual basis, we do an assessment of the rates and how the rates of municipalities is it's actually raised and charged. So you'll find that in the smaller municipalities, the rates are actually of the highest. If you look at places like Hanaland and Beaufort West and so on. And make understanding of what does it imply for municipalities. So what we've also done subsequent to that is a basket of services, looking at the affordability of certain services in municipalities, whether it's affordable to citizens, and in the event that citizens can actually pay for more services, what does that imply? And then the last thing that we've done is the work together with the Hans Seidel Institute, together with the University of Stellenbosch, on the sustainability of municipalities in a COVID environment. And the idea was to determine to what extent did the COVID-19 impact on the cash flow and on the sustainability of municipalities. The finding was, one of the findings at least, was that the larger municipalities were more buoyant and resilient to deal with the shocks of COVID-19 in relation to their finances. And so we're now putting this work together to influence what we call perhaps a financial model. The minister is of the view that the financial model for municipalities must be reviewed. But this is the ongoing work and research work that we are doing to see to what extent we can influence the financial modeling of municipalities, also with our national colleagues in the National Department of Cooperative Governance, as well as the National Treasury. Just in relation to the chairperson, in relation to Kanala, so that money was earmarked for Kanaland. And given the instability around it, that Kanaland has, well, there are some municipalities that actually, what we normally do with transfers, we transfer it ahead of time, and the municipality can then use it as they then implement the project. But what we have found is that when the money is transferred into a municipal account, that the money is intended for other purposes. And particularly given the instability around that in Kanaland, where there was a deviation of the approved financial recovery plan, as an accounting officer, I deemed it appropriate to retain the money. So I know that the chairperson is making sort of a comparison that prior to that we have transferred the money, and that was chairperson fundamentally for the water augmentation initiatives in Kanaland. Kanaland is still a high risk area as far as drought. Previously, we do biannually assessment on the risks, water risk towns and municipalities in the province. So what we do there is our engineers and our geohydrologists are working very closely with the municipality to ensure that there's compliance with the project plan. They monitor it. When for instance, boreholes are drilled, the boreholes are fitted with pumps and so on, electricity. The engineers sign off, there's verification that the stuff works and so on, and then it's paid. What we are doing now with certain municipalities where we don't pay the grants in advance, and the memorandum of understanding or agreement is crafted in this way, that although we will allocate the funding to the municipality, we won't transfer it ahead of time given the risks, but we will work with the municipality, and that's my understanding with the accounting officers in some municipalities. And so we will do the work together with the municipalities, and on completion, there will be a verification certificate signed off by the engineers of the municipality, signed off by ourselves, and to say that it's worked, that it has been according to spec. And the municipality will then put a claim in against the department, and then we will transfer the money, and we know that the money has been used for intended purposes. I couldn't at the time, given us the instability in Kanaland at the time, and taking the minister to court around certain matters, still transfer that money and be at risk that the money is not used for intended purposes, Chairperson. I'm not sure if there's any other questions.
I see Honorable Makamba Mboja.
Chairperson, that's an old hand. I'm covered. Thank you.
Okay. Honorable Bartman.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a follow-up to Mr. Lal Singh. I just wanted to find out whether it is the department and or the Western Cape government's position for the two financial periods, both the provincial/national period for financial statements, as well as for municipalities to be aligned. So in other words, we would then get the information at the same time. And if so, what would the challenges be in that regard? Because while I obviously see the benefits for us in terms of getting all the financial information at the same time, I'm not an accounting officer, so I don't know what the pitfalls in that regard might be. Thanks.
Through you, Chair. Thanks, Member Bartman. I actually don't have a position. So when I referred to, unless it's the financial years are aligned, it was just in response to how it would need to be synchronized. But I don't have a position on it. I'm not an advocate for aligning it or not aligning it. I'm sure there'll be lots of pros and cons and risks associated with it. I'm pretty certain that whoever decided to keep the financial years the way that they were when it all started in terms of the PFMA and the MFMA, there were reasons for it. I'm not at liberty to even hypothesize around it because I don't know any of the information surrounding it. So I'm not able to give any more. And I don't even have an opinion on it. Apologies. Thanks.
Honourable Chairperson, if I can add to that. So thanks, Honourable Chairperson, if I can add to that. So, I mean, this question of alignment of financial years, both between national, provincial and local, this has been raised quite sharply at the various national structures. That's both the Budget Forum, the Budget Council. It has been raised at the MINMEC, and also the technical MINMEC, and there have been work done into this, but there seems to be not a final decision on aligning the financial years. I can recall that ourselves, together with SALGA, has also petitioned, and often when we meet municipalities in IGR structures, the municipalities also ask us to make an appeal up north to see to what extent we can influence the alignment of the financial year. So this is something that comes on for the last, I would reckon, most probably 10 to 15 years. And there hasn't been a final decision to what extent we can align the financial years. I mean, I've worked with the MFMA on the municipal side, and it's as far back as 2004 that we have raised this very sharply. Thanks.
Honourable Bartman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the HOD for that extra information. Given that the draft public procurement bill that was introduced by the National Minister of Finance was introduced in 2020, I know Provincial Treasury has made some comments, I think, on that particular draft bill. Has local government made any comments on that draft bill? Because to my knowledge, that bill will not only repeal the MFMA, but it's not putting in any alternative as to what will happen once it's repealed. And similarly, all other preferential procurement methods or other procurement methodology, it's not in that the Office of the Chief Public Officer will be repealed. Essentially, the new regulator will be instituted, but many of those type of powers will then lie with the National Minister of Finance, and much of those provisions in the bill is seemingly left to either for the new regulator or for the Minister of Finance to essentially put into regulations and not for it to be legislated, when actually Section 217, 2 and 3 of the Constitution specifically speaks about a legislative framework and for legislation in this regard. Thank you.
HOD.
Yeah, Chairperson, given the fact that there's a MOU between ourselves and the Provincial Treasury, our understanding is based on that thing that the Provincial Treasury and the Minister of Finance in the province take responsibility for local government finance, although part of it, especially around the annual financial statements, is the responsibility of the Minister of Local Government. But there is a MOU that regulates it. So the Provincial Treasury has given comment on from a financial perspective on the bill. And we as such, given the fact that we are responsible for governance, has not given that because the work from Treasury was a provincial input into it. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, HOD. Honorable members, are there any further questions that you'd like to ask? If there are no further questions, honorable members, I would just want to check whether from the Minister, are there any remarks, Minister, that you would like to make if they, in the absence of further question from honorable members, as we are about to round up the meeting?
No, Honourable Chair, from my side, thank you very much. Thank you for the questions posed. To the team, to the HOD and his team, thank you for a job well done. 8 consecutive audits speaks to a certain discipline within the department, and we're very proud of that. There's a lot of challenges going forward, and I think the team is up to tackle these challenges. But again, thank you very much for the questions posed, and thank you for your oversight role.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. HOD, do you want to say anything?
Thanks, Honourable Chairperson. Likewise, thank you for the oversight that the committee exercises over the department from a financial perspective, also for the guidance of the Minister, but also for the entire team. I think the Minister has reiterated his entire team, but also to Bhavna and her team from the finances. Thank you very much. Yes, Chair, it has been, as the Minister indicated, the 8th consecutive audit, and it doesn't come easy. From my side, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Audit Committee, are there any comments or closing remarks you'd like to make, Chairperson? Chairperson of the Audit Committee? From the Auditor General, IG, are there any remarks you'd like to make as we are about to round off the meeting?
Thank you and good afternoon, Chairperson, and good afternoon to the members of the SCOPA committee, and also to the Minister and the department. No further comments made from the Auditor General side. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, AG. Honorable members, I've almost forgot to actually, while the Minister and the department are still in the meeting, to ask Mr. David whether are there any members of the public who are in the meeting and who have indicated that they would like to ask questions or who would like to ask questions.
Honourable Chair, there has been no indication from the members of the public that they will engage the committee and the department in this meeting. And I also do not see any members of the public in this meeting, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. Then in that regard, let me make use of this opportunity honorable members, to thank the department for its presence and also for its presentation led by the minister. Thank you very much, honorable minister, to be always available whenever we are calling on the department to come and account about the activities of the year. Also to the HOD, thank you very much, HOD, for the presentation. Also to the audit committee, thank you very much for the work we are doing for the department, as well as to the AG as well. Thank you very much. Know that sometimes you will find some of the questions very uncomfortable, but unfortunately, believe you me, they are not meant to actually trick you or to actually try and be difficult, but it's just us trying to exercise our responsibility and duty to hold the executive accountable. And we thank you very much for your cooperation in this regard. Thank you very much. You may be excused now as we are going to continue with the business of the committee, if the members of the legislature can remain behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chairperson and members. Goodbye.
Thank you.